What's up guys, it's Flameon from Flameon Miniatures, and today I have for you a very special video tutorial because on this one I will work with metallic paints. I didn't use them in at least 12 years, so I have no idea what will exactly happen, but I assure you that I will try to make a really good tutorial. But before we start, I would like to ask you to subscribe to my channel, because as you can see there are not many people here and I would like more people to see my tutorials, because that's why I make them, for your enjoyment and well, to share knowledge. So that would be cool if you would help me with that. And yeah, so I start working with my Mordor Orc with painting these elements that are supposed to be his, I assume, steel armor with dark gray paint. I would normally use black gray paint, but unfortunately I lost it somewhere and it's not available in any of my shops, so I will for some time keep using dark gray because it's a very similar color, just slightly darker than the black gray. So you can totally use black gray if you have it. These are similar colors. So what I'm doing right now is, like I said, I'm painting all the details that are supposed to be made of steel with this black gray color. I'm creating in this way base color for steel, for metallic paints. I absolutely didn't prepare myself for this. This is like, what you can see right now is my first time in at least these 12 years working with metallics. I of course started painting miniatures with metallics, but then I decided that I don't like them because I don't have enough control over this where light is shining. Of course it's not like there's, well, you just work different with metallic paints than with NMM, and I prefer to work with NMM, and that's all. If you like working with metallics, it's cool. After recording this video, because obviously as you can see I'm just recording and dubbing right now, I think I would like to try to use it on much bigger miniature, because on this scale you can really see this metallic particles in the paints, and it's not it doesn't look in the way how I would like it to look. But I think that if I would be working on bigger armor, then it is possible that I could make them less visible, and that would be really cool. So as you can see here, not all, there is still armor on his back. But yeah, some parts of the armor are painted, and yeah, I will use, as you can see, gunmetal and neutral steel and silver paint too. You can see them all in the right corner of the video, so there's not much to explain. But I start my work with neutral gray, which on the video seems to be a very bright color, but it's not really this bright. It's just that because the model right now is black and steel elements are painted with dark gray, then by the contrast with it, this gray looks like it's brighter, and it also looks as if it's brighter when it's wet. When this will dry out, it will seem a bit darker, but right now it looks like another metallic paint. So what I'm doing right now is that I'm painting reflections on the armor in places where I imagine that the light would reflect. I'm doing this using my many years of experience. So I'm just so it's hard to exactly explain where I'm placing the reflections. It's like you learn it with time. But there are of course things that you can hold the miniature under your desk lamp and just look where the light reflects on the miniature when it's just black, and you can change the position of your miniature to see how reflections work, because there are some universal rules or where the reflections will appear, and well, after some time just learn where to place them, and that's how I work. At this moment I didn't prepare my usual reference photo for an orc miniature because I think that this would be too much. I don't want to paint my orc miniature for 2 weeks. That would be crazy. So right now I'm preparing with this neutral gray paint all these places where I think that the light would reflect, and all those places where I think that reflection of light, shining spot, would make the miniature look more interesting, more cool. There are a few rules or where you place your reflections, and one of them is that it's good to paint also bottom edge of metallic element. Of course, metallic if we assume that this is a reflective surface. And when you have something rounded, like cylinder, like this armor on his forearm, this is how you call it, I guess forearm, then it's good to make it in a places where you can have shadows on the sides of it, like keep reflection in the middle. This will create contrast and this will look very interesting later. Of course, it's good to also follow shapes of details, but this is a really long story, and I assure you that this is simply something that you learn with time, because every miniature is different, but you can get used to where light would most probably reflect on a miniature. And you can also see where light reflects on a miniature just when you hold it in your hand, because it's illuminated by something. You can just try to follow this pattern. So, like I said, I'm now marking places where I think that light would reflect on the miniature, where the armor would shine, because as a NMM painter, I will paint with the metallics in a way how I would paint them, how I would paint NMM. I don't know if there are other ways of working with metallic paints, because like I said, this is my first time in at least 12 years, so I'm not exactly sure what I'm doing. I just copy my normal style, but in metallic paints. So yeah, this takes a moment, but thanks to marking reflections at this step, I won't lose the composition in the next steps, because it's easy when you focus on one detail to make it in a way that the detail looks nice, but it doesn't work with the rest of the model. And when you will create a sketch like this on the beginning of your work, then it will you won't lose this composition and the miniature will look good. And honestly, I really like non-metallics. So at this point, when I was painting this, I thought that maybe I should actually forget about the metallic paints and just paint with NMM. I liked where I was going with this miniature. I think I should have another one orc like this in the box. Maybe I should assemble it and paint with NMM. Then I could put these guys both side by side and make a poll which one looks better. That would be maybe interesting. Because these are two completely different mediums. You have complete control over reflections and shadows when you're working with NMM, and on the other side, when you're working with metallics, then you have a surface that is fully reflective. But you also need to create the shadows and reflections in a way, because then everything would look just odd if you would not have this. Because miniatures like this especially are really small, so to make the details on them more visible, we need to make them more visible. If you're working on some kind of a night bust, then you can, on bigger scale of course, then you can probably achieve much better effect with metallic paints than I will achieve here. And what I'm doing right now is, as you know from my other tutorials, I'm right now painting tiny scratches around the reflections in order to create semi-blurry edges of these reflections. If I would leave these edges sharp like they were, then there is a risk that they would be visible underneath the metallic paint layer, and that would not look good. So I will paint now plenty of tiny stripes around all of the reflections that I painted. Of course, you can see this process. I will slow the video down at some point, or was it already slowed down? I will slow it down in many more places on the video, but I speed up most of it because, well, it was a 3-hour long video, and I'm sure that you would not like to watch a 3-hour long video, so I'm trying to wrap it up as much as I can, but I also want to present to you everything that I did. That's why the video is very speed up, but there will be more moments when I will present to you real speed of painting to make you really see and feel how it was working on all of this. But this is not this moment, because this is all about presenting you how much I did. Yeah, so you can see this technique on each of my video tutorials. Like, check out my 2 video tutorials about painting the first Mordor Orc. It can be very useful, but the first one is painted with non-metallic metal technique. And of course I'm painting these stripes with brighter color around the areas painted with brighter color, but sometimes I also used darker color to make them more blurry. As you can see, it's just a sketch. It's not prepared like for the non-metallics, but it should work. I think it looks actually quite interesting at this point. Pretty good. I'm pretty happy with the effect. Oh yeah, and this is the silver paint, and I think that this is way too bright for an orc, and I will eventually mix it in proportion, like 70% of silver plus 30% of natural steel. And after I finish the miniature, I think that maybe it was still too bright. Maybe I should have used darker color. But like I said, this is my first time with metallics in 12 years, so I need to make quite a few. I need to paint a few miniatures to feel which solutions work the best for me. So right now with this mixture, I'm obviously painting these areas that I painted in previous steps as the reflections. And I will work in the same way, so I will paint the middle of them with solid layer of paint, and then as you can see, I still paint tiny stripes with the tip of my brush around them. but what was surprising to me is that this paint is much thicker and it dries quicker, and it's actually not as easy to paint stripes with it as it was with gray paint or any other paint that I worked with before. It's not impossible, but it's not really comfortable. So yeah, there will be now like a lot of painting stripes and dots with it. Obviously at this point you can, because this metallics works different, I could successfully paint also dots with it, but I'm used to stripes, so I stick to stripes. The surface of armor of this orc is not even, but I was not sure where did I create a structure somewhere, and that's why I have not even layer, or was it sculpted this way? I was not sure because, like I said, I'm so not used to metallic paints, but I was very excited to work with them. It's really refreshing, reminds me of much younger times when I was painting. I would like to paint something really well with them, but I'm not sure how to do it properly. I believe maybe the key is somewhere in glaze technique. I'm not sure. As you can see, I'm creating here some kind of a hybrid between NMM and true metallics. So yeah. So yeah, right now there will be more painting, more of painting scratches with this metallic paint. And yeah, I will start commenting once again when I will have something new and interesting to say. Okay, so now I'm mixing. Now I know. Yes. Gunmetal gray with dark gray from Vallejo. And I'm doing this because I want to create a metallic paint that is metallic but is less metallic, that is more matte than shiny it was before, because I want to place it in shaded parts of the armor. These are that are not reflecting the light in the brightest, strongest way. So I figured out mixing metallic paint with dark gray paint should create a color that will be metallic but much less reflective. So that's what I did, and that's what I'm going to use right now in here. As you can see, this is the real speed of painting. This is how I was painting it in reality. So I will paint now plenty of dots and stripes around these reflections that I created in previous step, trying to immerse these two. Immerse is, I guess, not the best word, but to, create some kind of a rather smooth transition between these two. And I will paint with it everywhere where there is black gray area left unpainted. So I will do it right now. So there is not much to explain, so I will be back when I will change this process into doing something else. In the meantime, yep, this is the process of applying this mixture of gunmetal and dark gray in places that are supposed to be darker than the rest of them. as you could see on the video, there were... I will start with this. Right now I'm taking Vallejo Mecha Weathering Rusty Texture Matte, and I will apply way too much of it on the armor, and now I try to fix it with adding more water, what was not the best idea, because I want to, because I will still do it. Apply a thin layer of this special effect on the entire armor. What in my head is supposed to create a new layer on these paints that is going to help me to apply more layers of this special effect in the next steps, and will make the armor a bit more matte. As you could see in the process a moment ago, I was also using other metallic paints, sometimes to paint stripes between these reflections, painted with the mix of silver and natural steel. I was using natural steel and gunmetal to paint dots and stripes between these darkest and brightest elements of the armor. So yeah, I worked in the same way like with non-metallics. I think that this armor could look a bit better, but because this is an orcish armor, I'm going now to work with lots of brown special effect in order to create effect of rust, because I think that this armor is way too shiny for an orc, and everyone always wants to have rust on Mordor Orc, so I will make it this way. And yeah, if you don't have this paint, then relax, chill out, just mix your brown paint that is a little bit orange, because you need to have a bit orangey brown for creating rust, because rust is like that, it's brown orange. And just mix it with water, apply it on your paintbrush, then remove most of it on a piece of paper, and then you can use glaze technique on the armor, because what you want to leave on the armor is a thin layer of this color that will dry quickly, because then you have control over it, not like what I did on the beginning of this step. And important thing to know is that I'm applying it, as you can see, with tip, but with side of the tip of my brush. So, and it works like this, that I'm like swiping this paint. So I'm moving it from one corner into another, and the thing is that there where I will finish my movement, then I will leave the biggest amount of paint, and this place of course will become more brown. So thanks to that we can create very delicate transitions between colors. We just need to think about it, where we want to have more rusty color and where we want to have brighter color. Of course, I'm trying to make shadows more brown and rusty and keep reflections bright. So I'm always trying to finish movement of my brush in the shaded area. And this is what I will now make for quite some time. That's why the video is so quick. It's 300 speed of my normal speed of painting. And so yeah, there will be plenty of layers of paint. So yeah, I think that this is my commentary about that. Right now there is just like making the same thing over and over. In the meantime, I'm blowing on the miniature, because this makes the paint dry a bit quicker, so I can apply more layers, so I can create more interesting color transitions. So I guess that's the knowledge for this step. Okay, so I will stop talking right now, I will be back when I will start making something else. Okay, so now I thought that this might be a good idea to create glazes with black paint, because what's better for creating dark shadows than black? So I diluted black paint, and I'm making the same thing that I was doing right now with this special rusty effect. So I'm just making glazes with diluted black paint, and yeah, in some places I'm also just painting stripes with it, but honestly I'm not sure if this actually worked. For some reason why this would totally work on an MM, I feel like it didn't work perfectly on miniature, but yeah, so I thought that it's important to let you know that at this point I'm glazing with black paint and painting tiny stripes with black paint. I'm just trying to create stronger shadows. As you can see, the armor is much darker than it was on the before I started glazing. Yes, it was a time-consuming process, but I was listening to an audiobook in the meantime, so I didn't mind. It's like you listen to a book, you get into your zone, you zone out, and you can just paint for many hours. At least that's what I have. That's how it works with me. So that was absolutely not a problem for me to make the same thing over and over again. It's actually pretty calming thing. So if you think that this is very time consuming and not for you, then yeah, that's obviously very time consuming technique, everything that I do. But if you feel like you want to calm yourself, then consider trying it. It worked for me, so maybe it will also work for you. It's nice to make the same movements again, over and over again, and see the differences that you are creating on your miniature. It's really helpful to calm your mind. And right now I'm using, I guess, this neutral steel for painting scratches and dots on the armor, because if we have rust, then that would be good to also have some scratches on its surface. And it's something that I actually really like in metallic paints that I do not have in NMM. I have problem with this. Is creating nice looking scratches. Okay, so obviously right now I decided that silver is the best option for it, and I think it is, because when you make a scratch on a metal, then you're removing everything that is on top, like rust and dirt. So you get to the core, to the metal that the armor is made of, and then it makes sense to make it with a really bright reflective color. So yeah, after a while I decided, after a moment, not a while, I decided that it would be pretty good to use this silver and paint stripes with it. I don't have a very specific idea how and where to place scratches, but I like to place two scratches side by side. I think because I feel like it looks more natural, like someone who hit at you with a sword in the same position during the heat of the fight, like over and over. So these scratches would be in close range, one to another. I don't know, that's just my feeling. That's just how I feel they look pretty natural for me. Of course, you can have different ideas about that and apply them in different places. That's just how I like to do it. Yeah, and because these are real metallics, then it looks different than on NMM. Very interesting effect. I like it a lot, actually. I think that painting heavy construction machinery with metallic paints and creating scratches and rust on them That would look really good, really cool. The one problem is that there's rarely places where you've got such bright metal. It's usually very covered in mud, rust, or stuff like this. Something like you can see here, you can rather see on pistons elements like this, but there are just a few of them, so not many places to use such bright color. Okay, and now I think that the armor is more or less done. So I'm presenting it on a rotating paint handle. Actually, I'm happy the most with the back of the miniature, but on, as you can see on the front, while I'm moving it, rotating it, it looks pretty good. But as you can see, the front is not many parts are hidden behind the axe, and when you look on the back, you've got nice work of lights and shadows that are not hidden behind any other element, and that's what I like about it. We're going back to it. Yes, this is it. I don't know if you agree, but I especially like how these two big shiny elements, flat elements of the armor look. I think it creates nice composition between the armor on the back and the helmet. I actually like it. I don't know what to think about these metal plates. They are quite interesting, but I think that the scale of this miniature maybe is too small for it, or maybe I made the reflections too bright, and because of that they look a little bit odd. I'm not sure. Like I said, this is my first work with metallic paints in 12 years, so I feel a bit like a rookie about this. I'm just trying ideas, but yeah, I'm excited to make more experiments with them. There is a potential here, obviously. Yeah. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and you will now decide to subscribe to my channel. That would be like super cool. If you would like to support my work, then you can do it on www.patreon.com/flame.com. I mix up completely, you know, on Patreon. I'm on Patreon. You can support me on Patreon. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this video tutorial. Thank you very much for watching it, and see you on the next one. Bye.